Okay, we're recording. I think we're live and we got 23 participants and going up now. So Catherine, I think you're up.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Catherine Wygant Fawcett, the Executive Director of the Institute for Family-Owned Business, otherwise known as IFOB. We're a nonprofit that helps family businesses succeed. And I'm coming to you from the IFOB headquarters in my home in Boothbay. No, I am not in my attic, okay? I have a posted view house and I'm in the second floor dormer with looking out the window here. So if anything interesting comes by, I might get distracted. So if you see a quick search, you know something's going on out in the woods. So the IFOB has over 50 programs this year, and we're excited because we've waived all new family business membership fees for the remainder of 2020, and we've opened up our affinity groups for all family-owned businesses to help you in these challenging times. Please contact us if you'd like to sign up. Our next program are the Women in Family Business Wine and Nine Golf, and that's starting July 28th from 5 to 7 at Nonsuch in Scarborough. And hopefully we'll be able to do our 9-hole golf scramble, well, we'll let the men in, and that'll be later in September. So we provide wine, carts, clubs if needed, instructions, and fun. And I'm not a fabulous golfer, but I've learned a lot through this. So we have people who are very skilled and we have not skilled. So it's just a great time for everybody to come and participate. And it'll be with all the protocols, and you can stay tuned for more details. And we're all facing these challenging times, and we're thrilled to partner with IFOB member Jacques Santucci of Opus Consulting and Jim Chalmers of Chalmers Insurance Group to bring this program today. We'll be recording the program and ask that you save your questions until the end. And now I'll turn it over to you, Jacques.
Well, thank you, Catherine, and thank you, IFOB, for having Jim and I tell you about our ideas about adapting your businesses. Like you said, we are recording the program and we'll have it online. We're also streaming on Facebook at the same time. So hopefully you'll be able to catch it also later. So thank you, Catherine. Thank you, IFOB. And let me introduce myself. So I'm Jacques Santucci of Opus Consulting. We're a performance management company in Portland. We have been in business for over 11 years. We are members of the IFOB, and all our clients are companies like yours, and we're helping companies get to their next step. We're helping business owners get to their goals. And my friend and colleague, Jim Chalmers here.
Great. Thanks, Jacques. I appreciate it. And Catherine as well in the IFOB. It's great to be here and partner with you and as Jacques said, lend some thoughts and ideas and help and kind of experiences that we've gone through. And introduction on Chalmers, so Chalmers Insurance Group, really, we're here to listen and help, and that's what we do and been doing. Sorry, Jacques, on your 11 years, we're going on 4 generations since 1857, but, and we're really a community-based insurance agency, primarily serving clients throughout Maine and New Hampshire. And things that we'll talk about today, like adapting to the trying times, and part of our organization structure is modeled to be able to go where our clients go. So really, truly, with our team of over 90 licensed insurance professionals, we're here to assist, folks with their, as you can see on the screen here, your personal needs and commercial needs. And at the end of the day, our goal is to listen, to help, to solve problems, and ultimately be, help you be more successful. And that's what we're here to help on things like today in this webinar. So thank you.
So, Jim and I are in business to actually help others. Jim through and his family through their insurance business and other related business that they have, and our team here, on helping with business performance, business management, strategy. And so we thought that sharing our experience, sharing our ideas, and sharing with you what our clients are also doing could be of value, very valuable in these times. So in front of you here, you see the outline of what we're going to talk about. Adapt your business, initially we talked about the new normal, but Jim and I realized that that's probably not the right term. It's about business and how we adapt. And so we want to share with you our experience and our priorities. Then talk about what's in the short term, what's the path to recovery. And then on the long term, what's the path to transformation? Because this is here to stay, and we want to share with you some ideas about transformation and long-term strategy. So we at this time we're all getting back to work, and more or less, as you can see, I'm in the office. Jim is in the office. Catherine is in her office, although I think that's your office all year round, correct? And
Yes, it is.
and but back to the new normal, or back to normal. What does that mean really, right? And is that really ever existed? So let's review together. What can we do? What have we been doing? And what could be our focus? And the way I look at it, the way Jim and I look at it, is right now the priority. Our number one focus is survive and adapt. What's the path to survival mode? What's the path to adapting our businesses for our stakeholders, for our all employees, for our partners, for our clients? And that's the number one point. But Jim, what do you think are other priorities that we could talk about?
Right. So here, and as we're pointing out, and some other things, I'm a big sport fan, and I love analogies. So I kind of one that's always hit home for me, and especially more so now than ever, is Wayne Gretzky. Most folks will probably say, and as he always says, you don't skate to where the puck is, you skate to where the puck is going to be, right? So certainly talking about the path to recovery, but also, what is that path and what's it look like going forward for you today, here and now, but then also looking down the road, the changes you've made today, but going forward as well.
Yep. So, in those points here, continuity, safety, and community are the words that we want to keep in mind. And let's look at the longer view, and let's aim at those goals. And I don't see it that much different, although some of you might not agree with me. I don't see it that much different than last year or 2 years ago. Business is a constant renewal. Business is always around reinventing yourself a little bit to stay relevant, and it's probably forcing us to do a little bit more this year. But we have, by focusing on the business continuity, we're probably going to uncover better opportunities.
Yeah, and Jacques, and on that, speaking of that just a little bit more, it's interesting. Just in the industry that you're in and we're in, we touch a lot of different folks and clients and industries, and so though no one business industries not affected by it, some are doing well and thriving in it, as we're seeing, but others are learning how to adapt and figure out how to do it. And really, so that's a big thing for us that we talk about is adapting, changing, pivoting, and to be able to continue to provide those solutions and help folks. And again, as we talked about, it really isn't about kind of yesterday, to your point. It's continuing to renew and to look forward and to constantly find ways to change and to pivot.
So when we're preparing, you and I were talking about our experience and what we heard from clients. And, you were sharing some experience you had with, going remote. I mean, your company went all remote within what, a couple of days?
Yeah. It was, it's interesting, in the sense of how it all happened and pulling it together. And we've always had a few employees work remotely, more so from the sense of just space challenges in some of our offices. And so we've had some limited experience in that. And so taking a look at what we can use from a technology standpoint, what we've learned from them, going from, the physical office locations to remote workers, right? And as we like to say, our doors and our office locations might be closed to business, we're still open for business, right? We're still taking the calls, working with our clients, working with new business opportunities. And the big part is, right, yeah, talking about that and using technology. You know, Jock, we didn't touch on this when we were catching up the other day, but think of this happened 10 years ago and the different challenges that we would all be in versus today. And so looking at those opportunities in the sense of what we have for technology, what you're using for your systems, what we're doing today, right? We're not at Husson and Westbrook and we're all
Right.
sitting around tables. We're harnessing Zoom and conversations to be able to certainly still provide, IFOB is still able to provide programming throughout the whole year.
Yeah.
You know, and it really has created, you know, you think about that, you know, the increased flexibility, increased retention of employees, you know, the ability to tap into a broader talent pool, which I'm sure we'll talk about, you know, in a little bit. But on the flip side, it's lessons learned too, you know. You know, for us, a lot of our employees have those big clunky desktops. It's like, all right, you know, we're not in the business of, you know, manufacturing and taking these all apart, asking folks to put them in the back of their car, drive home and put them all back together and you know, kind of, hey, take pictures of where all the wires go. So then you can, you know, pull it up on your phone and certainly we're here with our team to help put it back together.
And
You know, yeah,
technology definitely helped us too, just also on ways of getting payments. You know, now that businesses are
yeah,
reopened a little bit, it's and banks, it's getting better. But you know, 2-3 months ago, we were able actually to continue our business because people were paying us online versus, you know, sending a check. 10 years ago, you know, we would have all, you know, been chasing, you know, papers and going to banks. And so, you know, you and I are very optimistic and positive people, Jim, and I think that's one of the positive things that I see here is that you know, we've been able to continue businesses, although maybe more limited, just because of technology, thanks to technology.
yeah, no, and I mean, it is exactly, it's we're saying, hey, we got to go all laptops now in the event to be more fluid, right? Forget the desktops and you know, interesting though too, right? Internet speeds, you know, so things we've learned even from 10 years ago to now, we still have employees that have challenges at home with having enough bandwidth, enough speed to handle our, you know, our CRM system and our phone system. And so it's getting those plugged in. And, but we still have roles within the organization that you have to be in the offices, right? So, I mean, every office, we at least have one or two people. And to your point, Jacques, on kind of circling back on money, you know, sometimes for some of our folks, our clients, you know, that's their monthly or weekly outing is to go to the insurance agent and drop off their payment and say hi. So we've been trying to, I don't want to say retrain them, but help and support, you know, and say, all right, you know, hey, exactly. Yeah, I mean, wire transfers, you know, EFT payments and things like
I didn't
that.
know I could pay my insurance by
Well, you can't. No, it's you know.
$1 bill. If if I do that, do I get like a lollipop or something?
No, we charge you more, you know.
The other thing too we talked about and we'll continue to talk about this in this presentation is the talent pool. You know, what's been interesting and we talked we heard that from a couple of clients already. Because they're going remote, they have access to talent that they couldn't hire before because in their way, those people needed to be, you know, local or based in Maine. Well, by having a new access to a new talent pool, they can hire somebody in Texas because, you know, they can work remote. And so that's going to bring some challenges, you know, for management, like you mentioned, and probably challenges in business development and client services, whatever the industry is. But it's opening opportunities on the staffing side.
No, I agree with that. Certainly, Jacques.
So, you know, let's look at where we are now and what's our path, what's your path to recovery. You know, I think the first point that you wanted to mention, Jim, is regulations.
Yeah, and it's interesting. And, you know, I'll start off kind of by using an example, an industry, the restaurant industry, right? And so having to pivot for what they do, you know, just talking about rules and regulations and how they've had to adopt, right? The table 6 feet apart. And so we've been working with many of our clients in the sense of okay, who are your neighbors, right? So if you've got a parking lot, sidewalks, or things that you can do with your landlord to say, hey, as long as you can get that sign off your landlord, from the town, the city to do it, it's creating outdoor space. And so we really talk about in the sense of figuring out solutions and how do we get through that with you. And there are myriad of resources in that sense. And again, so maybe we are talking about a new product. Maybe you're talking about a new distribution center or new state territory that you're going into, or even maybe it's just in where you're always at and just changing how you operate. And so there's certain things available to you and within the organization, um, from from a service like the IFOB, from a chamber, uh, from state associations, your trade groups that have resources for you and the ability to you. And as I always like to say, your advisors in your network. I mean, certainly, Jacques, for you and I, we have quite a few mutual clients, and we're able to help one another and kind of pull everyone together and have these conversations.
Yeah, because that's the first step in this recovery is before you think about your business is let's look at the landscape and let's understand my options, what's the rules and what do I have access to, and then the next step that I see that we have been advising our clients is around once you assess your options, assess your own business and prepare your business plan. Think about what are the challenges that I have and let's list them. Let's be realistic about what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm dealing with, what are my challenges, and let's prepare. It doesn't mean that you got to make decision at that point, but let's look at my needs and let's work on the business plan. And the next step that comes right there, and then we had other webinars on that topic, is your financial position. Most businesses, are around, making money, and continue to grow. So their stakeholders, employees, partners, continue to thrive. And in that sense, once you have a better idea of what are what is your your plan, let's look at the cash flow. Let's look at the financial resources. Talk to your bankers, talk to your financial advisors, look into insurance, and look at the programs that are around you. Look at the people who can help you come up with your cash flow forecast. We do work in the turnaround and workout world, and there's what we call the 13-week cash flow, and that's what we've been advising for the past 3 months. Let's work on 3 months cash flow. Let's look at what's happening, and let's look at week by week. What are the drivers? Your sales, new channels, volume, prices. How am I going to work on this? Let's be flexible, maybe discount. Let's look into the loyalty of customers, which is usually very important. Let's look at my cost. How can I reduce my cost, get new vendors, work with my vendors. They need your help too. And talk to your banks. We're not going to go back to all those programs that were or still available, but look at your debt service and see how you can ease your payments so you can restart, and your account receivable. And then obviously look at your capital expenditure, and then maybe limit your orders and limit your inventory so you can actually keep your cash flow and have a good cash flow. So those are the two major points. Before we go to what we think, Jim and I are the major 2 points. Listen. Let's listen, right, Jim? You're a listener, Jim.
Try to be, most of the time, certainly. I mean, and that's that's part of what we do, and whether it's internally or externally, right? And that's what we all really strive to do and be, and it's listening to your employees, listening to your customers, listening to the stakeholders, to help and support, right? And so it's really those 3 key buckets, and your employees, and I can't take credit for it, but I know that within our organization, our management team, senior leadership team, we're having one-on-one conversations with every single employee, right? Your comfort level. Our goal is to slowly stage back in our employees after July 4th weekend. But, every office is a little different, and we can circle back, as we touched on earlier, kind of like that safety and health and well-being of your culture and your employees. And a lot of times your employees though as well, they might have a solution, a thought and answer, right? I mean, listening to folks and listening to Mark Cuban every now and then speak, and he said, listen, sometimes your employees will have the greatest idea and thought, right? They're the ones on the front lines talking with your customers, with your client base, and why not harness their information, their help and support? And again, like with advisors, as we'd mentioned, they can certainly provide help, support, and recommendations for you. And it's really pulling it all together, as we like to talk about, sort of that thought partner, having a thought partner, someone that you can confide in and have conversations with.
Yep. Yeah, and the communication part internally and externally is a key point, because we're all learning, right? It's new for all of us. It's a new dimension of business. And so listening and communicating and communicating and having an open communication is to me is very important. That helps really build the first steps we talked about around the plan and the financial model, and then help you adapt to those new standards, right?
Yeah, I mean that communication piece, internally and externally. I think Jacques may have just froze on us here for a second, but for us, we can never communicate enough, right? And so we have these conversations internally. We have an intranet system. I know that we've been using for years now, and that's a tremendous opportunity for us to talk with our multiple locations. And now, especially from a remote standpoint, having all of our folks, for the most part, working remotely, being able to post information on the, we got your back, Jacques. All right.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
That's all right. But yeah, no, so with our I know system, which is our internet, to also what we've instituted from when we went to remote workforce, or bi-weekly office huddles, where each specific office gets together in a Zoom conversation, to our management, senior leadership team having these, what we call office huddles. And it is, as your point, Jacques, you can never communicate enough. And certainly transparency is a huge piece of that as well. And we found some positives. The silver linings are some employees may not have reached out to another employee that worked in a different office, right? And so now this has created training, education, sort of mentorship opportunities where some employees are reaching out to others for help and support, which we might not have seen before.
Yep.
And that's creating collaboration amongst the offices too. We like to think of Chalmers as one big organization, one family. But sometimes you look at I'll say your office, but really at the end of the day, we want to foster that collaboration as one organization where we can all help one another.
Yeah. And what just happened to me for 30 seconds or 45 seconds, it looks like I lost the internet connection in the office. And that's something also we're all going to have to deal with, is the bandwidth is going to have to be different, right? And it's going to be less concentrated in offices and more spread around. So there's going to be a cost associated to it for a lot of companies. So those 6 points kind of cover what we see as the short term, and the 6 points of getting to the longer path to recovery. And we worked on a small timeline on what we think are those steps before we restart, right? It feels like July is going to be the time where people are going to go back to work and their business is going to take off again. And so that slide shows, the idea, understand your risk, plan your options, protect your assets, talks to your advisors and professional help, call Jim, call myself, call our teams, work on your financial modeling. And like we just said, work with your team in general and listen and communicate. I think that's the summary, right, Jim?
Yeah.
And I think the next step is let's invest in our future. Let's invest in our businesses And let's talk about the path to transformation. Let's look at what is the longer term. You know, I mentioned earlier the business drivers, but there might be a need to pivot your business. You know, once you listened and heard your clients and your partners, you may have to re-engineer your business out of the previous recessions and out of the previous economic issues. We've seen great companies reshaping their business, and we've seen new companies like Uber or Lyft or even Zoom coming out of those.
Yeah, you can't be afraid of change and to adapt and even and say, okay, what we tried something and it didn't work. Let's try something else. I mean, you tell me where's Blockbuster right now, right?
Yes.
What did Netflix do to Blockbuster, right? So it's learning, it's pivoting, it's changing and being able to adapt as as the consumer demands change it, as society's trends change as well.
And it's difficult, how do you stay relevant? And that's really here the question. Business is going to restart, is coming back. Some of us may not see it exactly the same way, but at the end, humans are good at getting back on their feet. So how do you stay relevant as a business? And that's really the long-term questions. And then how do you use technology, right, Jim? I mean, your company is really in the middle of this.
Yeah, I mean, with technology, I mean, there's all sorts of challenges, and it's just beyond, so technology aside, it's beyond just your office layout, in encouraging how do we harness our talent and our folks and our technology to continue to operate and hopefully be around another 160 plus years. And it's taking a look at these opportunities that we've put in place and continue to reinvest in, right? To us, yeah, technology is expensive, but it's a necessary, and I don't even want to view it as a cost, right? It's an opportunity for you, for us as an organization, us as an insurance agent, to be able to continue to look at opportunities and invest in technology to make sure that we can compete with other businesses like us, and kind of getting back to the sense of the new, I guess we'll say the new normal or the changes that for us. I know I said it, you've got me to say it, and from these large national agencies that we compete against, that the technology can also help our competitors too, right? So it's saying, all right, it's allowed us to expand and operate in different states, allowed us to expand and operate and follow our clients as they continue to operate in new territories and new states. But on the flip side, it's allowed the same thing for our competitors. So it's creating that momentum, and for us, it's the talent too. I mean, we've got a great internal team. Director of IT, certainly we are a family business. He's a family member as well, and an IT manager, and having all the folks involved in helping out.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting how companies have a chance to expand without moving from their own base. I mean, Opus is now a New England firm. After starting in Maine, we've got clients in around the country, and mostly between here and Massachusetts. And I've been spending a lot of time driving around New England, but it hasn't stopped me in the past couple of months, right, to continue to work with my clients wherever they are. And sure, I miss the human relationship or the human connection, but the innovation has allowed us to stay relevant beside the physical location, and that helps us to, and that's the third point here, foster new collaborations. The virtual relationships have taken a different shape, and at this point we all spend so much time on Zoom and Teams and WebEx that we probably forgot what it is to see somebody physically, and hopefully it's going to come back. But it's interesting how in the long term, it's going to be so different, and we have to embrace it.
No, but it's great, in having this, having Zoom, having video conferencing has made a huge difference, and at least allows for those connections, and it's putting you in the face of your clients and opportunities to have this, as personal touch as we certainly can have, Jacques.
The implementation, though, of all those things are going to be pretty interesting. For those of you who are in business development, we all used to, get an appointment and then, get to meet people, and then you develop a relationship, and then you get a deal coming up. But and the trust that is built is through a physical, most of the time, connection. In this case, it's going to be a new type of trust, a new business trust. Although trust may be a weird word, but I think it's going to be something we're going to have to all work hard at implementing for each of our businesses and our partners and our employees, and see how can we foster those collaboration even more than what we've been doing in the past.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're a very, we're a community-based agency. We live, work, play, in Maine and New Hampshire, for the most part. And for us, it really is truly doing that, coming out, visiting, seeing our clients, business development, and creating that in-person relationship. And that's a huge piece. So that's something that we continue to work through and have those conversations. Of course, on the flip side, the silver lining is, efficiencies, right? You're no longer getting in your car driving 2-3 hours for a half an hour conversation with someone, or an hour-long meeting. Some efficiency from, some savings, right? The meals, the hotel, the travel, all those things. So then you're looking at, all right, here's an opportunity to take that and reinvest elsewhere on it. And we're all dealing with it, right? So it's not in the sense that this is just something that you and I are dealing with, Jacques. We're all dealing with it, and it's working through it, and we're all getting used to having conversations like this. It's certainly strange. Sometimes it's a breath of fresh air when you can just grab your cell phone and have a conversation. You're so used to having now, these Zoom meetings throughout the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And you were mentioning earlier that you're a fourth generation. You and Dottie, your cousin, are the fourth generation of the Chalmers Insurance family. It'd be interesting to talk to the first generation and compare notes on management in crisis, right? Because each generation have their own crisis, and we are, it's management, it's in crisis. It's really leadership in crisis. Yeah. And it'd be interesting to see how you and Dottie and the rest of your management team are dealing with this compared to what it was, 4 generations ago, and how you are adapting to those new, new. I'm not sure if actually what the word would be. Because I don't want to use normal.
How we are too. It is, and that's gone are the days of the horse and buggy, right? And you just did business in Bridgeton, Maine, and that was. Or even one side of Bridgeton, Maine, and that was about it. But I'm thankful for the team that we have, the senior leadership team, the management team. The culture of leadership that we've created. And we've realized need of help and support, and either bringing on talent or outsourcing and hiring, right? We've had a leadership coach for years, and he's been tremendous help and support for us, and other advisors, and reaching out, attorneys, and conversations that we've had, Jacques, with you, and again, the IFOB. I mean, there's just so many resources and help that I think leadership internally, but can certainly transcend out of that. Mentors and all those pieces help and create opportunities to take a look at, no matter where you are, what industry you're in, whether you're 11-year-old company or a 160-year-old company, we're all faced challenges and trying to figure out how we can all stay relevant going forward.
Well, in general, when a business struggle, beside if economical or product related, the management is usually one of the issue. And when management doesn't want to change fast enough and doesn't want to be realistic, then it creates some struggles. In this case, right, it adds another layer, forcing management to adapt, and that's something we've been talking to our clients. Is let's be real and forget about what we've been doing before.
Yeah, I mean,
And
that's what we've learned from, the open mindset and the closed mindset, and that's, you've got to be able to adapt and change. And our leadership coach, it's this whole piece of, or having an open mindset and being able to change and pivot. But it can be hard, right? If you put a lot of time, energy, resource into something, and it's not working, sometimes it's put your head down and keep trying to bust your way through it. And sometimes the hardest thing is to say, hey, it's not working. We need to pivot and change.
yeah. And it is difficult, and success is never easy. So that's for sure. Well, we're getting towards the last 2 points of our path to transformation here, and something that I think is the silver lining here is the ability to work remotely. We all know about it. We talked about it before, but somehow, although a lot of businesses and me first were resisting the all work remotely, it is now obvious that companies can actually survive and operate working remotely. And I think that's a silver lining for a lot of businesses. They're going to be able to implement it and then see that as an opportunity. Now it's time to optimize it, right? How do you incentivize your employees? Keep them engaged. Employee engagement is very important. How do you keep those employees to be engaged with your clients or production? Obviously, like you were mentioning, Jim, when we prepared, it doesn't apply to all industries, right? And I think we've got a few examples of companies that can go remote, but probably a lot of companies can implement some kind of a remote work and make it efficient.
Right, it's even limiting the number of folks, so one is just efficiencies from remote workforce, but the other is, again, for like the novel coronavirus piece, right? So limiting the number of folks in your facility, really speaking as a risk manager, the safety and health for the employees, but then also, if they're at home caring for someone, for those that have kids at home, with school now school's out, now what do you do with them in the summer? And then also things that we talk about, which I believe I neglected to mention earlier, really with the whole remote workforce, is also from the risk management standpoint of making sure, viruses, threats, and scams. I mean, we've all seen, and read in the news here in Maine, even just the number of, unemployment, Social Security, scams that have happened just here in Maine, and that's gone across the country. So it's making sure everyone's tuned in as we harness technology and continue to use it, evolve and adapt, that we're well versed on, hey, making sure we spot those false emails coming through.
And this type of changes was in the making anyhow, right? I mean, in our team here, we all have laptop. We actually started to reduce the number of physical phone. I don't think I've had a phone on my desk for at least 3 years because most of the time I'm moving somewhere. So it was in the making. I think it's just been pushing us, and it's something to embrace because it's here to stay, and so might as well make the best of it and learn from it.
No, I agree. It is. It's here to stay, and it'll continue to evolve. I mean, again, looking back 10 years to now, what's technology going to look like in 10 years from now? With all the bricks and mortars that companies have, and then looking at opportunities for folks to work from home.
Yeah, and then once you spend some time working on your protocols, on the safety part, on the technology part, on the workflow part, on the employee engagement, then things going to fall in place, and everybody's going to continue and thrive with their businesses.
Right, and as you said, though, I mean, some things you need to be deliberate on in corporate culture, right? We work hard on that. Outside of leadership, it's making sure that, over years, we've spent a lot of time and energy on, hey, this is Chalmers, this is who we are, this is our culture. And so all of a sudden, as you start to take everyone and farm them out remotely, you can start to lose that. And so it is trying to say, all right, how do we continue to reinforce who we are, what we do, take care of our client base, develop new clients, and behind the scenes keep that culture. And so it is the utmost important, at least for us, with our bi-weekly office huddles, with what we call charter groups, right? So when we're looking at different projects within the organization, new ideas, new thoughts, we pull in employees throughout the organization, and it really gives them an opportunity. I mean, even just the other year, we take an employee from, southern Maine and from New Hampshire, and they drive 2 or 3 hours for a 45-minute meeting, right? So they're basically offline all day to get together. I mean, we figured out, at least we figured out pretty quickly, hey, why not harness Zoom, harness opportunities to say, plug in, have the conversation, then you can turn around and be right back at your desk to take care of the clients that are calling in.
Yeah, but you see that's difficult for me. I've got a Mediterranean background. I'm a touching kind of a person, right?
Yeah.
And I'm feeling it. So it'd be interesting to see how we can create those new corporate culture with the remote, the efficiency, and still the human. Because after all, we're all humans, right? We're still humans.
We're human. We want that connection, and I'm sure a lot of people want that structure. I mean, right, as you said, I'm in my office, right? I tried the work from home. It's not going to work for everyone. I mean, I lasted a few weeks and then went back to the office. We need that structure. We need that. In my industry, we are, like you, a people person. So it's certainly figuring out that next step. How do we do this? And the hope that we can at least get to some formal piece. I mean, who knows if those huge, large chamber gatherings, ever, when and if they happen again, or it's just smaller get-togethers, like Catherine, you said, the IFOB, the wine and nine, and the golf outings.
We're hoping to get back together.
Hoping to get back together, yeah.
Yes.
And so, well, exactly, right? It's when, and I would say, I'm not going to say it'll never happen. I'm just saying it's more time, right? When does that happen?
Right.
Yeah. And what does it look like?
You think we're going towards business development through TikTok?
Yeah.
I hope not.
Well, I hope so. I can't wait to get your TikToks. Well, so I think those are the last points that we wanted to mention here on our path to transformation. And we now at the end of our presentation. I
have a question for you.
Okay.
Yeah. So in regards to one of the slides discussing the path to transformation, you mentioned designing a business model for the new normal. How does one stay on course with their model, and what are some major pitfalls?
Yeah, it's a very good question, and pandemic or no pandemic, it's always the question. The advice that we give our clients, and I'm sure Jim gives the same to his clients around the risk management, is let's be realistic. And one of the pitfalls is not being realistic with the situation, not being realistic with the expectations of employees, partners, stakeholders, clients. And so to stay on course, my advice is, be realistic and follow the steps that we mentioned, follow the steps that your team and your advisors are kind of giving you, and start looking at the financial impact and the realistic financial impact, and be accountable to yourself and be accountable to the people around you. And leading in general, starting a company is difficult. Leading a company is very difficult. Leading in crisis is I don't think there's a word for it. And so realistic is to me the word to work on your business plan. And Jim, any
No, I like that. That's a great point. Be realistic. I mean, it's timelines, right? And it's figuring out and putting it in place. But yeah, I think to your point, the most important part is the follow through, right? If you spend all this time, energy, and resource on something to make sure that you make it a realistic timeline and that you can follow through on it.
Yeah. And overall, we all have to keep in mind that things are going to continue to change. I don't have my crystal ball today, so I can't tell you exactly, but it's going to continue to evolve. It's going to continue to go somewhere, just like 10 years ago and 4 generations ago, it wasn't the same. So, it's just, let's look at it on a day-to-day
Yep.
basis. Let's be accountable, and let's implement.
As one of my mentors said to me, there's no 3-ring binder you can pull off your bookshelf to tell you how to run a successful business, right?
Yes. So let's see if anybody want to ask some questions. You can all have access to the chat, and so feel free to ask us some questions. I should have probably mentioned it earlier. Let's see. If I can find where the chat is. Well, not getting any questions. So, Catherine, thank you
Yes.
for helping us hosting this wonderful webinar. And like we said earlier, we've recorded the event, and then we'll post it online. We'll also post the slides, so everybody's got a chance to read again the points that Jim and I put together. And then, Catherine, do you want to remind us what is your next event with the IFA?
Yeah, our next event is going to be the Wine and Nine for women. The men have tried to get in, and the women have said no. Come in, but we probably can have you come in on our scramble. So we're looking to do that in September. And I want to thank you both, Jacques from Opus Consulting Group and Jim from Chalmers Insurance, for this great business advice and information. And when people exit the webinar, they'll be prompted to do a survey, and that's how we all help to grow our programs and things. So if you could take a few minutes and do that, that would be great. And we thank you all so much, and look forward to seeing you in person when we can, and continuing in the world of Zoom.
So we got a couple of text and thanking us for the work. And then, Jim, a question for you.
Yeah.
What kind of claims is Jim seeing being made if policies is issued?
That's a great, good question, an interesting one, because it's changed slightly, right? No one's driving. I mean, I'm sure almost everyone probably listening in has gotten some type of, money back on their personal auto policy from what we're seeing. And so there's been less claims overall in the insurance industry, but we're certainly still seeing challenges, employees from home, right? So the slips and falls, you're working from home. It's not that controlled work setting. So you're seeing those situations happening. And then certainly, the ongoing conversation and folks and understanding, and we certainly don't have to dive too deep right here on this, is that business interruption claim situation where people are really trying to understand the pandemic piece of it from that side. But really at the end of the day, it's the comp piece, employees working from home, where we're seeing some situations happening.
Yeah. Another question that I got is around the commercial real estate world, right? We talked about remote and changes in employees, but there's going to be an impact on the real estate market. Do you see something like this, Jim, happening, and an impact on your industry?
I was talking to a national insurance broker, and their CEO has basically said that they're shrinking their footprint by 70%. Their office, they're in, Boston, Atlanta, New York City, the large metropolitan area. So they're basically saying we're going from an office space of 3,000 employees to, 300 essential employees, really more of those folks that their jobs really require them to be there because of the paper and payments and things that happen, and everyone else is working, is going to work from home or here on out. So we're certainly seeing that. Now that's, we've heard that from several folks. But on the flip side, I mean, we have clients that are buying property in Boston, buying, commercial real estate in Portland and seeing tremendous opportunities as well.
The interesting part too on real estate is when with people working more from home, the home insurance is going to have to be different too, right? Because now you're going to have people staying in their house and working from there. That might be a different approach to insurance. And
Yeah, the big thing, and really, which I didn't mention earlier, is more so if you're, let's say you're a Maine-based employer and you only have Maine employees, and then you hire a remote worker and they're based in Arizona or, where any other state than you're in, there's a change there, the change in exposure. So certainly let your insurance agent know that, especially from a workers' compensation standpoint.
And even on how to set up employees too in their house and with electronics that they probably didn't have before, that's going to have an impact.
Oh, yeah, ergonomics, everything. It's still a workplace. It's still your setting, and it's kind of like what's behind you, right? It's that professional piece as well as we talk about remote workforce is knowing your surroundings, whether it's a green screen backdrop or it's just making sure that it's a professional work setting behind you as best you can.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you all for the messages, thanking us for the presentation. Thank you again, IFOB and Catherine and Jim.
You.
Yeah, thank you, Jacques. Thank you, IFOB. I appreciate being able to be part of this conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great to see you all.
Take care.
Enjoy the sunshine today.